Okay, it's Thanksgiving in America, and we have been joyfully joined by the man himself, the myth that is Front Row Brian. Thank you very much, though, for coming on and talk to us. It's for me anyway, because I follow you on Twitter, and your insights and the stuff that you put on, you know, it's been really engaging. It's actually helped me get a different angle. I won't lie, Brian. When I first got into the MMA scene, I thought everything was all shiny and bright and beautiful. But some of the stuff you kind of pointed out and mentioned, it really has opened my eyes up to a lot of things. So I want to thank you, for doing some of the stuff that you come out with, because you don't kiss ass, which is what's beautiful.
Well, you should thank me. I mean, I usually don't do these things on holidays. I usually just take it easy on holidays. But Adam said to talk to these guys, and I said I would do it, and so here I am.
You did get the money that we sent, didn't you? No? Oh, do you know what, Adam? I think Adam's kept it. Oh, you'll have to have a word with him.
You did sound more drunk than usual.
I'm not fucking Virgil. I don't charge for the interviews. Like fucking Virgil.
All right. Well, can you send it back then? It was £1,000. It was. That's like more dollars.
Yeah, but man. Just to talk a little bit about what you said when you first started following the sport. That was me 10 or 12 years ago. Whatever they said on television, I accept it as absolute fact. And then, once you start following it, and, I always refer to it as the MMA bubble, and, I admit I live within it, you start finding out that the things that you thought you knew is really not true, or, it's partially true, but there's some important details, and like Rocky said, it's not all sunshine and rainbows, from what you see on television. And then you meet some of the guys, and you realize that not only are they just regular guys, in many instances they're doing worse financially in their lives than most of the fans. I mean, the McGregor's teammate, he had just retired. I mean,
Cathal Pendridge.
He spent a bunch of money on a training camp in Mexico. That's got to be expensive. He's got to pay for his guys to come. And, when you're making 12 and 12 or 18 and 18, 20 and 20, the money goes, and then you got to pay taxes. And that's why that, in unison with all of the scientific information coming out about head trauma, those two things are the reason why we're seeing a lot of guys retire younger, because they're like, hey, I'm not making any money, I'm never going to be a world champion, and I'm suffering brain damage. So, you know what, I got to live this life. I love fighting, but it's basically time to grow up and get a real job.
Yeah, it's with the NFL, for example, they're getting paid a shed load of money, so they're probably thinking, I'll lose a couple of brain cells for that multi-million-dollar contract that I'm getting. But the UFC, it's a fraction, and we're talking about the UFC purely because they're the one who are the highest payers, really.
Well, that's the thing, truth be told, the UFC does pay the most amount of money of any promotion in the world. But they also do like $600 million a year in revenue.
Yep.
And I don't know of any other promotion that's. Does anybody do? I'm trying to rack my brain. Bellator. Their finances are a little complicated because
Viacom.
97% of the company is owned by Viacom. Yeah. World Series of Fighting, what are they doing as far as revenue? They're doing great. 200 tickets.
Well, that's the thing I wanted. That was a couple of. You literally touched on two things I was wanting to chat to you about. Really, it was, the financial things about the UFC. The Bloody Elbow page did some great. They did 3 pieces on the UFC finances, which I think they are fantastic articles for anyone who hasn't read them. They really are brilliant. You know, the insight they gave to it, and you know, they did simplify it a little bit, because I won't lie, when I first read it, I couldn't get my head around what the hell they were talking about in some instances. But it's mind blowing, the potential money that the UFC is making, and then you look at how much is being pushed down to the fighters. There is no correlation there.
Well,
yeah, it's sad. I mean, this is going to be their most successful year. You know, I mean, 7 or 8 years ago, it used to be like every show would do, you know, at least like 350,000 pay-per-views. Now we got shows that they'll do like 125,000 pay-per-views, but then there'll be like 4, 5, 6 shows that all do above 700,000. You know, like this year, you know, Jones and DC did 800. Diaz and Anderson Silva 650. Ronda Katzengano 800. McGregor and Mendez 800, probably, maybe a little less. The other one, Betch Carrera and Ronda, million, and then Holly Holm and Ronda, 1.1 million is the early estimate, and I might even be forgetting another big card in there, but it seems like the big cards are, you know, they're producing the profits, and then there's these other cards, you know, with like Demetrius Johnson. It's like they're kind of like taken away from the profit. I don't even know if those cards are breaking even.
Yeah, and especially it's a shame, and we spoke about that with Demetrius Johnson. He's literally pound for pound one of the best around, and he does not get the interest at all from people.
Yeah,
it's just mind-boggling.
Well, I guess just to finish that thought. I mean, the reason I went on that rambling thing was, you know, with the big shows, it's becoming more apparent to me that people are picking and choosing, you know, which fights that they find interesting. Whereas, you know, 2007, 8, 9, 10, it was like, okay, it's the monthly UFC. We're buying it. You know, there was this core of, you know, 300,000 households who were going to buy every single UFC. Whereas now, it's so much more star driven. It's not as much the brand. It's the star of McGregor and Rousey and John Jones. And, you know, those guys are doing good. They should be doing better. But I think the problem with being such a star-driven business is, you know, what if John Jones is not as good as he used to be? What if Ronda Rousey fights 2 more times and leaves? What if Conor McGregor is knocked out by Aldo? I mean, he's still going to be able to sell out any arena in Ireland and, you know, and still be a big deal, but, you know, his ability to draw on pay-per-view is probably going to decline significantly.
Yeah. It is it's almost like walking on eggshells, because they are hoping that, to be honest, Dana White is praying that Conor wins against Aldo. There is no way
he needs
him to win that fight. There is financially go on.
Did you see Dana White's mannerisms and his body language when you know, Holly was being announced as the new champion?
Yeah, you could see it in his face. He literally was like...
There wasn't a lot of smiles.
You could see on his face, it pretty much said, fuck.
Yeah.
You could see he was just knew the money that he could have made was gone. But then I think the money they make, if they do a rematch, I spoke to Mike about this I think we said last week or the week before, I think if they do the rematch, they're probably going to maybe aim it towards UFC 200. Because it gives enough time for Ronda to step away out the limelight and give her a bit of time to maybe get herself ready for it. And the amount of money they can make from UFC 200 with that rematch, it probably would be greater than Ronda's, maybe if Ronda had won and maybe went on to fight someone else.
Yeah, it's all going to come down to what Ronda wants to do. She's got to film 2 movies, you know, so 2 movies, and you know, I mean, I would think she'd need 5 or 6 months with a real boxing coach to try to be competitive in the stand-up. But, you know, maybe she says, no, Edmund's my coach, and I'm not changing anything. You know, she thinks that she's a world-class boxer when she's somebody who started training boxing about 4 years ago and has a lot of deficiencies.
Yeah, she's got really bad footwork.
You know, yeah, I mean, no head movement, and it was very apparent. I mean, even Miesha Tate really, you know, hit her hard a few times. It's just Miesha's just got something mentally that she, you know, she gets in there. She just doesn't. I mean, I'm not a psychiatrist or sports psychologist, but it just seems like there's something that stops her from. I don't know if she's intimidated by Ronda. I mean, I wouldn't doubt that for a second.
Yeah, I reckon Ronda's probably in Miesha's head, but she'll definitely put a face on or front to kind of to hide it, so to speak, in the public eye. But if you could get it down and could get it to be open, she would say it's in her head. Especially that first fight, that people who don't realise there's other promotions that there were outside of the UFC, that the first fight where she got her arm broke, there's no way that does not stay in someone's mind in a rematch. Or any time after.
Those scars, they're scars you can't see. They're going to stick around. Like.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing about this whole thing is, you know, if they want to throw Holly Holm in there in the title fight, I think Miesha Tate is the one who deserves it. I mean, she's beaten, you know, all of these, I think 4 in a row, all of them ranked in the top 7 or 8, and I would favor Miesha Tate. I think she has a more diverse attack to getting the fight to the mat, whereas Ronda, she's got a lot of knee problems that go back to, you know, when she was 14, 15, 16 years old. So she's wrestling, you know, is very tough on the joints, you know, very tough on your hips, very tough on your knees, you know, those single and double leg attacks. And we don't see Ronda do that. You know, we see her rely on that, you know, patented judo throw. And, you know, it's worked almost every time. But if you remember, she tried to throw Betch Carrera. It didn't work. And then she tried to throw Holly Holm. And then, you know, it was disaster, you know, because then it became a kickboxing match. And that's the other thing. Ronda doesn't kick.
No.
So Ronda, you know, thinks she's Mike Tyson in 1988, you know, and she's not even close. You know, Mike Tyson's overrated. You know, Ronda Rousey's overrated. You know, the 10th power there.
Yeah, it's dangerous with Ronda Rousey, especially because of, like you say, a coach. Edmund, the problem was with him going into filing for bankruptcy just prior to the event. Then you've got he didn't actually turn up to his appearance on the Monday, just this Monday just gone either, for his bankruptcy filing. You got to think how much did that possibly play into a fact of this, and you know, also when you saw Ronda on the scales, she looked really drawn on the face. Her body was nothing like it was on previous fights.
Conditioning didn't look.
You know, so what? And obviously, like you say, her mum wasn't there. There's many factors going into it. Now, I'm not discrediting Holly Holm's performance or the way she took that fight. She literally fought her fight, and kudos to her. She whooped ass is the best way to put it. She made Ronda look like Ronda made everyone else look like shite. But there's a number of factors, and I've said to Mike as well. I think somewhere like TriStar, where Faraz Al-Harbi, who's a genius with people because of his psychology degree, where he could probably work with Ronda really well and also. There's killers. She'll be surrounded by killers to train with. You look at Glendale. There isn't any killers. She was it. That was it. Like Travis Brown has not won much since he went there. Jake Ellenberger just recently gone back to King's MMA. Glendale's not a great place. It's only great because Ronda was doing so well. But take away that, there's nothing else there.
Yeah, she's gonna have to make some decisions. I mean, she's pretty hard-headed about certain things, and you know, I mean, she's typically not very loyal to people, like her manager that basically bankrolled her career and got her to this point. She just fired over some very ridiculous reasons that, you know, more information will come out. That's an ongoing legal proceeding. So I don't know. I don't know what type of control this Edmund guy. He seems a very, you know, I mean, I've heard some people say, you know, he's an okay guy, but he seems incredibly delusional. You know, he's on Rogan's show talking about how Ronda, you know, at 135 pounds would beat any girl in the world in boxing.
Yeah,
it's just
that.
like,
except for Holly Holm.
I mean,
yeah, it is staggering.
That's the dumbest shit I've ever heard. I mean, I bought into a lot of the Ronda hype, but when he started talking about being a world champion in boxing, I was just like, nah, get the fuck out of here with that. And the other thing, you know, leading into this fight was Ronda was talking about everything except beating up Holly Holm. She was talking about being a jiu-jitsu world champion. She was talking about going back to the Olympics and winning gold in judo, talking about being a boxing world champion. And then to cap it all off, she wanted to be a WWE Divas champion.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this girl was just like, I think, I mean, just a classic case of just buying into everything, you know, and surrounded, you know, especially by, like, Joe Rogan, who's, you know, I have respect for his knowledge of martial arts, and I find him highly entertaining, but he's just embarrassed himself with this ridiculous praise of Ronda Rousey. And Ronda is somebody who really respects his opinion. So basically, he was not doing something very positive for her. Just filling her, blowing more smoke up her ass.
Yeah.
And you know, she starts believing all this shit. And you know,
she got
we saw what happened.
I personally wonder if it's because, I mean, the male role models she's got in her life are pretty much zero. Outside of, you know, like, since her father's passing, there doesn't seem to be a lot of men in that family. There's none.
There's none, no.
You know, no. So you think, well, did she sort of, like, put faith into Edmund, or, you know?
Well, not at first, because he shunned her off.
I know, but you know what I mean? That might have been what sort of brought her on even more, you know, it's, I don't know, I think, you know, is that where a sort of...
I'm not a psychiatrist, so I'm simple. Certainly very sympathetic to her, the story, you know, the situation with her dad, and you know, that's got to be something tough to deal with. Thankfully, I haven't had to deal with any of that. I can only imagine, but yeah, you know, she's a very complicated individual, and she has a mom who I think, in many ways, is the only person who has her best interest at heart. But she's also a firecracker. You know, she caused some problems with this camp. You know, in one way, I'm like, hey, it was awesome. I mean, she says whatever the hell she wants, and you know, she's probably earned that right. You know, she accomplished something that Ronda never did. She's a world champion in judo, and she built Ronda. You know, but the timing of it, and you know, to go on record and say you're going to drive this guy, you know, if it was legal, she would run him over with a car. I mean, I don't know the whole timing of it. You know, maybe she could have held that back, but
I don't know if there would be a good timing.
She's a complicated individual too.
Yeah, I don't know if there would have been a good timing for that though, because you think, even if she did it after the fight, say like, for example, she didn't say it, and Ronda went on and did win. Even if she said it afterwards, it would still be there for the next fight, though. There would still be friction, and even if Ronda kept training,
but she could have, you know, cut ties, moved on.
Yeah, it's a tough one really with that. But then again, I admire her mum for saying it, because her mum
spoke her mind. Yeah.
The thing is, I really do like her mum, because her mum is actually quite brutal about Ronda. Like, she will tell Ronda straight, and she doesn't hold back, and she didn't hold back about Edmund even. I think people need to hear that about Edmund. You know, because not everyone would have known about that, and I think something like that's key. And you know, the way Edmund as well said on this bankruptcy files that he didn't make any earnings over the past 2 years. I just find that...
Yeah, I don't buy that.
I just don't understand how he's been training the most financially prolific fighter in the UFC for the past 2 years, and he didn't make a dime. Like, what's that? What's that about?
It's not possible. He's in a lot of trouble. I mean, he can't even remember the last time that he filed income taxes.
Yeah.
And I mean, bankruptcy fraud. I mean, I'm no legal expert either, but I mean, you put into paper, you sign your name next to something that you made $0 for the past 2 years when Ronda was selling millions of pay-per-views. To me, that's outright fraud.
Yeah.
You know, so he no-showed that hearing once again. That was not the first no-show.
Yeah.
And so, you know, from what I understand, that allows the trustee, who basically looks after the interests of the creditors, you know, all the banks that you know gave out hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of credit to them, that gives the trustee more ammo to devote resources to investigating the situation further. So I don't know. It's going to be a long road. I mean, even if she wants to stay with him and say, "Yeah, I want you to be my coach," I don't know. I mean, he might be fighting for his freedom.
Yeah. I agree with you. That's the thing. I think Ronda really does need to disconnect herself from that, because the also thing is, even if he didn't go to jail, there's a lot of stress that's going to be connected to him.
Around and
like she doesn't need that added stress of what's going to happen with him.
She needs to focus on her own crap. Like,
she needs to think about this. She does need to be selfish in that aspect and look after number one. Because,
but you know, guys, the important thing to remember is, you know, let's just say she brings in Rafael Cordero, King's MMA, and there is no conflict. Cyborg has not worked with that guy in many years, so let's just say she goes there. There's no guarantee that she's going to change. I mean, you know, he might be able to change a few things, like, hey, throw a couple kicks here, but, you know, is he going to be able to close the gap in the difference between Holly Holm's stand-up ability and Ronda's stand-up ability within a 5 or 6 month, or even a shorter period of time, because she's got to be on set, you know, with this stupid Roadhouse movie, Patrick Swayze, which is just a complete disaster waiting to happen.
Oh, yeah.
And one other film that I think will do better, because it's just, you know, it's just an action flick, and, you know, from the people that know, I'm not a movie guy, but the people that know movies, they say the girl can't act worth a shit.
Oh, she's awful.
It's just
she's awful.
She's an action star because she's a badass, you know.
Yeah. Oh, she was awful on Fast and Furious.
Yeah, she's not picking up no Oscars, is she?
No, she is dog shit at films. I'll tell her.
You know, and just like Gina, you know, Gina's going to be in a movie with Bruce Willis coming up, or it's already. Actually, I think it's already filmed. And she's a bad actress, but you know, she's a badass. She's got credentials, and you know, she's also a lot prettier than Ronda. I mean, that means something in the movie business.
Yeah, Gina doesn't look bad.
She's also well liked, you know, which Ronda can be very difficult to work with.
Yeah. Ronda has that kind of persona.
My point with all that is, it's no guarantee Ronda Rousey is going to become The Rock in the movie business. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've yet to talk to anybody that says Ronda Rousey is a future of, you know, female action flicks in Hollywood.
Well, you see, that's the thing is, because it was a badass that got her there, will it carry on getting her there now that she's just been smashed?
Could you say it again?
Because it was her sort of badass, sort of aggressive,
well, being
like
champion,
top of the tree champion that got her these film gigs. Now that she's been
dethroned,
totally, and shown to be quite vulnerable, are these film roles going to start drying up? You know, she's definitely not top of the tree anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, because she was sold as this invincible machine who just hurt people, in a matter of seconds, and the public bought into it, the UFC pushed it, the Hollywood crowd bought into it. I can't help but think that it's going to affect her ability to get some of these roles. I mean, all the memes and Donald Trump, who just might be the next president of the United States, went on Twitter and said, "I'm happy she lost. She's not a good person."
Yeah.
And and Floyd Mayweather actually took the high road. I mean, the amount. I mean, even my mom's never watched an MMA fight. She calls it wrestling. She doesn't even know what it is. And I was coming back from Singapore, and I was had a layover at LAX, and she texted me, and she said, "I heard that Ronda Rousey girl got knocked out." I mean, this is the level of Ronda's celebrity. I mean, she's that big of a deal that people that have never watched a fight, don't want to watch a fight, are interested if this girl won or lost.
Yeah, I get it over here.
I was going to say, I work on a hospital ward with predominantly women, and even they were saying to me, like, is it true Ronda Rousey got knocked out and all this and the other? And I was like, yeah, and that's the level she's on now. She's in that sort of Mike Tyson sort of level where even your grandmother knows who she is.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
I just can't believe it's ever going to be the same.
Well,
her aura. I think her aura changed, and Ben Askren. He said he's been studying. He was a Olympian in wrestling, and of course, undefeated MMA fighter, one of the greatest collegiate wrestlers in the United States history. And he said that he's studied successful athletes since he was a little kid because that's what he wanted to be. He wanted to be these guys. He wanted to be Dan Gable or Kurt Angle or Michael Jordan. And he said that he watched Ronda walk off that plane, at LAX, with her head, in a pillow. And it was just like, that's not what great athletes do. I mean, she didn't want people to see that she got her lip busted. It's a fight. Who gives a shit? I mean, I'm sure Holly had a couple of marks on her face. I mean, it's a fight.
Well, we saw her face busted up after. When the fight got announced,
I think that was from the grin that she pulled after the win.
Yeah. Well, no, we saw her lip busted up. Yeah. That's the thing Ronda doesn't realise. We saw her face.
Yeah, everyone saw it actually.
Everyone saw it afterwards anyway. So it's kind of weird. Like maybe you'll have black eyes, but you wear sunglasses, and it's very common that people wear sunglasses.
Is, it doesn't matter. Like, you know what I mean? It's.
Do you know what? I think she would have got a lot more kind of, I say sympathy, but if she just came off the plane and went, Holly was better on the day, I fucked up, I'm going to go away, sort my shit out, I'm going to come back, and I think people would have been like, yeah, cool, she took it on the chin, literally, but she was kind of like, oh, my bubble's been popped, and Dana obviously was probably crying over it.
Do you know what I even like is the fact that the new PlayStation game, she's on the
front cover. I know, and that's why I think they haven't announced Connor. I think they jinxed it. I know they don't. Obviously, Connor's going to be. They want Connor to be the other one, and they're probably saying we're just going to wait until the 13th for December.
That'll go out for the Christmas one. Yeah,
and it's crazy. It's absolutely insane.
It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting, if Aldo, dominates McGregor or knocks him out or something. What the backlash to Conor will be. I think it'll be pretty strong. It'll be all over Twitter and social media, but I don't think it's going to be as mainstream. I mean, Conor is. I mean, MMA fans like him. Some sports fans, but he doesn't transcend the sport to the degree that Ronda does. Yeah. It's really not even close. Nobody really has. So there'll be quite a bit of backlash because he's been saying all kinds of things. He's not the company guy. He is the company.
Yeah. But do you not find it strange how, like, for a company as big as the UFC has become, to have all their eggs in so very few baskets?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what I was getting at. I was like, Yeah, they had their best year this year, and there's more to go. Last year was a very poor year, because they had a lot of injuries. What happens, if injuries plus your big drawing cards kind of, show some decline, or people aren't interested. The public is very fickle. I mean, what if they're like, this Ronda girl, we were sold a bill of goods, and I don't want to watch her fight. She got her ass kicked, and I don't like her attitude either. So I'm off. I'm not part of Ronda Mania anymore. I think there's probably a sizable amount of people who are not going to pay attention to her like they used to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like I've met Ronda twice, and both times there was no cameras around, and she totally shunned me, and she had time.
Just because she couldn't see it because she's so short.
No, she's not that much bigger. But yeah, it's like I tried to I tried to engage with it, and she just totally went no. And it seems unless you're a little kid or a woman, you've got no chance of talking to her, or very little chance, shall we say. Maybe if you're a married man, you've got half a chance. Drop that one in.
Who cares, man?
Oh yeah, exactly.
Most of these people are, I always see these fans waiting online to meet these people, and I'm just like, go find something else to do with your life. I mean, It's not worth it. Get your picture, get a fucking autograph by one of these guys. I mean, these guys aren't curing cancer. They're not doing anything so special. So, do something better with your time.
Do you have a picture with Tom?
I saw some people standing on line to get a calendar autographed by Ariane Celeste. Can you imagine standing on line to get a calendar autographed by Ariane?
No.
I mean, that's when you have to
look at your life.
Go on Google, put in mental health professional or psychiatrist if you're smart enough to know how to spell that, and really take inventory of your life and seek out some assistance.
We better take Mike.
I actually shunned her. Yeah.
We better take our calendars down, Mike.
But, yeah, what's the name of that fella on your one?
Yeah. Have you got a picture of yourself with Tom Lawler?
Yeah. What about Tom?
I was just saying, have you got a picture with him? No, I'm leaving it. Right. So we mentioned UFC just then. I've got to bring up with you, buddy. What did you think? I thought it was a fantastic. I really enjoyed the interview, but what did you think of the? I don't know how Mike felt about it, but the John Jones Ariel Helwani interview that just went out.
Yeah, I watched it, and I thought we saw a guy who is committed to changing his life. And one of the things I didn't like was, he said, he basically admitted to continuing to drink and smoke marijuana even after the incident happened. It took 3 or 4 months. I was like, oh, wow. I mean, that probably wasn't a good thing to come out and say. But he's a convincing guy, and he's actually not a bad guy. He fucked up big time. There is no defense for what he did. Yeah. He is a good guy that a lot of people like. He has a tendency, and he even admitted. That's why I don't see I saw a couple articles that were criticizing the interview with Ariel, and I was like, he admitted he was acting fake.
Yeah.
He's basically he told you he let down everybody, and he was acting fake because he wanted to present himself in this way, and that's not something that he wants to do anymore. And then I think it was just people upset because he stood up for himself against the UFC about them covering up the Vitor Belfort drug test, and then all the bullshit that they pulled on him for pulling out of the UFC 151, which is over 3 years ago, and he's still talking about it. I mean, John's a sensitive guy, and he's not forgetting this, So if he has an opportunity in the future, if there's a big, Bellator gets big, or some big Middle East oil money gets into this, or Japan has a renaissance, don't be surprised if John Jones jumps ship. Because this champions clause is complete bullshit. Somebody's got to challenge it in court. You can't. You can't keep somebody under wraps, under contract, because they continue to win. Mm. It would never hold up in court. You have to have an ability to fight out what you agreed to do. You agreed to do this many fights, and then there needs to be good faith, an ability to negotiate not only with the UFC but with any other interested parties. Mm. So I would not be shocked. And, John even, it sounds like he's going to go after the Nevada Commission. And he said specifically he has 3 years to go after it. So obviously he has talked to some, legal counsel about this.
Yeah,
so,
I think he's building a case up for it.
Overall, the interview with Ariel, I thought Ariel asked some tough questions. These were not, if it was on Fox, a lot of those questions probably would not have been asked, but it was on MMA fighting, and I thought Ariel, it wasn't an easy interview, it wasn't softball, type questions, and I think we saw a guy that is realized, the John Jones of, 10 months ago, or whenever it was, 7-8 months ago, was not a good guy. It was causing a lot of pain to his family. He has a wife. He's got 3 kids that live with him. And I think he's truly embarrassed by his behavior, and I think he's committed to making a change.
Yeah, I'm with you. I thought it was... I was really surprised with the questions Ariel said, because... I like Ariel Helwani, but he is a little bit of a company man for the UFC, so he is sometimes, his questions are sometimes, not angled. Like, for example, I think during the interview when, like you said, he did talk about, John Jones talked about Lorenzo he actually sounded like Lorenzo said Lorenzo sounded like he cares about him, but he said Dana just cares about business. And, Ariel, I thought, you could see right there, Ariel didn't carry on with that and asked for a bit more. He kind of went off to a different question, and I kind of thought that's the businessman, like the UFC man, and Ariel coming out there. Because instead of trying to get more out of John, he just kind of went away from it. And I thought, do you know what? I'm glad that John Jones came out and said that about the UFC, and kind of, he said about the UFC did a load of shenanigans which he wants people to know about, and I was like, that's really good of him to say that. And you know what? He's not scared, because he almost has that release of not being the champion. And it was, like you say, it was a brilliant an openness from John Jones.
And I think they're not loyal.
I know, and I think he will. Like you say, I hope he maybe tests the market. Even Benson Henderson has talked about maybe testing the market as well when his contract's up as well. It's exciting times.
I think a few will.
I can tell you, unless the UFC offers an insane amount, because after that fight on Saturday, there's a 90-day exclusive negotiating period where the UFC negotiates with Benson. Unless they offer him some insane amount of money, he will definitely let that 90 days expire, and then he can, he'll be able to talk with Bellator, who I know is definitely interested, and then the one championship in Asia, with Benson being half Korean, his mother being born in Korea, Benson would be a major priority for one championship, and they have money. They pay Ben Askren big money that I'm not even sure if Rory McDonald is making the type of money Ben Askren makes. I mean, maybe Robbie Lawler does because of the pay-per-view percentage, but Ben's making a bunch of money, and I think Ben Henderson. It's getting confusing now. Benson Henderson would be able to make that same type of money that Ben Askren is making.
Yeah, he has got that kind of level of kind of stardom in a way. Benson Henderson has, and plus even Risen, it depends on how well that goes. After the New Year card, and we don't know what kind of money they're going to invest in and what kind of fights they're going to do. So
I'm thinking it's going to be big.
No, I think what's interesting is a
big
lot
figures going on.
Yeah, I think it's exciting times for fighters with the potential open market, and I think a lot of that stems from the Reebok deal as well, where a lot of fighters now
sure.
Yeah, they're more tempted to test that open market. Look at Josh Thompson. He even said, he goes, I let my contract run out. Ramsey Nejim as well. He said, I let my contract run out. I wasn't.
I think there's going to be more and more.
And
I think they'll start. It'll be like rats leaving a ship.
Yeah, but I really like that there's, the fact that the fighters are willing to go elsewhere, and I think it really sticks it to the UFC in a way. I'm not anti-UFC, by the way. I'm just trying to think that the UFC could put themselves out a little bit better towards fighters, and I think it's quite exciting times for other promotions that we might get a time where other promotions will have great fights often. And
as you said, like with the amount of revenue that the UFC have, they could fix it tomorrow.
Yeah, easy.
You know what I mean?
Easy.
Like they don't need 3 years to fix it. They don't need for the Reebok deal to run out.
No,
they could fix it tomorrow.
But
you know what I mean? It's
Dana needs his private jet.
Well, they can carry on doing that. This revenue is money in the pocket, and but will they? I think a lot of people will flee before.
Yeah, I think John
they start
Jones,
putting their hands in their pockets and they start raising things up.
But the fact that someone like John Jones and Benson Henderson say that it does speak volumes.
I think that's what you need.
Right?
I think you need a current champion to flee.
Well,
and then you'll go, oh right, so that's how serious it all is.
Well, I think Benson and John Jones are pretty much viable kind of people to do anyway.
Yeah,
so I think they're big enough. I think it's quite a poignant moment. I think people don't realise how potentially big this moment is in this past week with Benson and John's comments. What do you think, Brian, on it?
Yeah, I mean, I've been saying it for a while that these guys, they need to fight out their contracts, because you're never gonna know your true value in this MMA world unless you're a free agent. So UFC, they always want to lock you up, and then they will play games with you that if you don't sign that extension before the last fight, they'll say, okay, we're going to give you a much tougher matchup, or we're going to send you to Poland or something. We're going to send you down to Brazil. We're going to do everything we can possibly do to make this as tough on you as possible to hurt your value in the market. So a lot of guys are just like, all right, send me the contract, because there is really no negotiation. For like 95% of the guys, if you're making 20 and 20 and you've been somewhat successful, they might throw you 23 and 23, 24 and 24. I mean, they might, but that's why I've had people say there really isn't a role for a manager in negotiating contracts for some of these guys who are at the lower level and at the mid tier, because the UFC is just they're just so used to getting their way, and they have so much leverage, and they have a lot of ability to hurt your value in the marketplace. So guys just kind of cave, and they keep signing up before that contract expires, and that's why free agency in MMA is so rare. I mean, I think it would be awesome. I mean, if John Jones became a free agent, it would be so big for the sport. It'd be like, our LeBron James, the decision. I don't know if you guys are big on basketball over there across the pond, but LeBron James in 2010 he was a free agent, and then he was just a free agent I think the summer of 2014. It was the biggest news item for like damn near the whole season. They were like, oh, where's LeBron gonna go?
I think he ended up. Did he go to the Lakers? Did he? I can't remember now. Did he go back? Did he end up at Lakers this season? I can't remember where it is. He's gone to now. Well, yeah, I do. Yeah, I remember it being huge. Yeah.
No, he went. He first he went to Miami, and then he went back to his home team that he played for prior, the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Cavaliers, sorry, yeah. I know he went to the Heat because the Heat had like a ridiculous team at one point. They had like every probably top player at the time, and it was like a superstar team. But yeah, it would be that kind of level. I think if John Jones did it, and I think it sounds crazy. I think we need that to happen. I think the sport needs something like that. I spoke to Mike about it. I think what would be fantastic, and it's not anything bad on the UFC. I would love if we could have fighters that could, like, at least maybe in their contract where they can go to have one fight somewhere, because I'd love to see Ben Askren fight, I don't know, anyone in that welterweight division in the UFC, like, you know, like kind of, if it's Robbie Lawler, Roy McDonald, Johnny Head, you know, I'd love to see that happen. I'd like to see, you know, guys in different promotions fight other guys, even if it's like a one-off, just a crossover. But it's just, I think fighters should have that choice. Like BJ Penn did it a while back when he just like literally went, no, I'm off to Japan now. But the thing is, back then, the sport, I don't feel, was big enough, or it just wasn't big enough at the time for people to really realise what they could be doing now. Because people forget that. People forget what BJ Penn did, you know, and you know, like Chuck Liddell.
Yeah, when he left. When he left for K1, they said that you'll never fight in the UFC again, and then he came back and, you know, became one of the, you know, a huge box office draw for them, and was in some of the biggest pay-per-view events, you know. But K1, they offered him a bunch of money, almost $200,000, and that's a decade ago. I mean, that's a lot of money, and the UFC was paying him. You know, a fraction of that, you know, maybe 50,000, and of course they take everything personal. You know, it's just like, well, shit. I mean, you want to work for 200,000 or you want to work for 50?
Yeah,
you know, it's like, well, yeah, that's kind of a real easy decision to make.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, A-level maths isn't needed on that one.
No, you don't need to be a mathematician to work that one out. But that's the thing. I think that people don't realise that BJ Penn has already done. In effect, he has done what is already, like we've talked about just now, what should happen. But not everyone knows. That's the thing.
No, it wasn't in every home.
It wasn't in every home, and you know, unless you're a little girl and a little nerd like we are, you won't know it like an absolute turd like I am. But the thing is, people don't realise that it happened, and I think we need another incident like that to maybe reignite people's thoughts. And it sounds, I'm not being anti-UFC. I think that people should, like you say, have a chance to test themselves on the market, and because people are worth a lot more than that, because they're getting their faces kicked in, and I think it's worth a lot more than just 2020, or even, sadly, if you just sign up 10-10.
Yeah, well, I mean, and think about it. I mean, just because you test the market doesn't necessarily mean that you're done with the UFC, right?
Yeah.
Gilbert Melendez, and he got a sweetheart deal. I mean, Gilbert got himself a ton of money. You know, that included pay-per-view percentage, and you know, this was a guy who had never won a UFC title, getting pay-per-view points, and he was only able to get that contract because Bellator signed him to an offer sheet, and ultimately the UFC decided to match the terms, and you know, Gilbert, it worked out great for him, and you know, he got caught, doping, so probably, you know, maybe I guess that happened in June, so
yeah, he even picked up a tough contract, didn't he?
Next year.
Yeah,
but
so go on,
he's made a ton of money, and that was the smartest thing that he ever did was fight out his contract and be able to get that offer from Viacom, and you know, then it's out of everybody's hands. It's just up to the UFC at that point. You know, if they want to match.
We all know where he spent his money.
Yeah, but I think it's great that Gilbert did, and I think, well, Giblet, if you want to buy his top from the Reebok website, you know, Giblet and Melendez, it's an amazing top. I think fighters probably should do that. And another thing I want to definitely mention is we giggled about it before, but I said at the start of the year that I can't see World Series of Fighting making it to 2016. Now it looks like they might, but I don't know how.
Yeah,
like, again,
in their own blood, sweat.
Again,
Bloody Elbow I've done some more fantastic work on their website. Again, they won't get Journalist of the Year. It will go to the. I'm not saying it's fixed, but you know, it will go to other names, which we won't say. But they did some great work again on uncovering the shenanigans that were going on with World Series of Fighting with their finances, and you recently posted a great statement from Darren Owen about things going on. Like what's with Ali? It's crazy what the hell's going on with that promotion.
I can't really understand, what Ali adds to that promotion. I don't understand it at all. It's like he's such a cancer for them. Why don't you just cut the cancer out? Cut the cord, get rid of this guy, because all he does is bring negative attention towards World Series of Fighting. And this is a company that's on the ropes. They're trying to survive here. And, Ali tells people that, he's one of the owners of the company, but there's really no evidence, at least according to a Bloody Elbow article, there's no evidence that he is an owner of that company. I can only assume that he's simply an employee, and he's been pulling all these shenanigans for many years since the organization started. The organization first started in 2011, but because of money issues, and they couldn't get licensed in Nevada until late 2012. This is something that has been going on for several years. It's not one case of it, and there'll be more articles. I can guarantee you there's more articles coming to Bloody Elbow about this situation, and Cody Bollinger, basically backed this up and said, Ali wanted to be his manager as well as the matchmaker for the company. So he wanted to pay Cody a bloated contract, and then Cody would, and then match him up, carefully against the right opponents, and then Cody would then in turn kick back a large percentage of his purse to Ali's management company. That's not in his name, but there's all kinds of documentation and correspondences that prove that it is his company, and he simply just had somebody else sign the paperwork, and that's not going to cut it. He might have thought that he came up with this ingenious plan. That's not going to do it.
No, it is, and like you say, Cody Bollinger, he posted that email up of Ali, and I tweeted it. I tweeted it to you as well, and it was one of them things that I couldn't get my head around. I read it, and I obviously read the articles about Ali, and I knew. I've not liked Ali for a while, especially with the way he talks about things. I just think, who are you? Like, what really? Who are you? And like you say, I think if they get rid of him, it would take a lot of attention away from them. But what shocked me is that Nevada have not acted upon what, in theory, is him breaking their legislations that they have in place, where he can't. It's the fact that he's been helping fighters with sponsorship, where there was a conflict of interest again, where he would match fighters who he's company managers, and yet the sponsors that aren't with World Series of Fighting, he would still get them deals and stuff. I thought it just shows that Nevada need their own. It sounds weird to say it, but it's like Nevada need another commission to commission Nevada. Are you still there, Brian?
You still there?
Oh, sorry. I was saying about how the Nevada need their own commission in a way to commission them, because the way Ali's been basically getting away with, like you say, what he has been doing for years, but they've not acted on it, and it's strange.
Yeah, maybe he's been spending his money wisely.
No, but do you know what I mean? I don't understand how the Nevada Athletic State Commission haven't done anything when because they have that legislation in where you can't have that conflict of interest with, being involved with the promotion and being a fight manager. It just blows my mind.
Well, it's his way around it was he's not a licensed matchmaker for World Series of Fighting. Ray Sefo is, on paper. But, again, there's documentation that shows that he was matching fights. So, according to Nevada, and they have their head in the sand, and they're a bunch of morons.
Yeah.
He was not the matchmaker. When, he would go on and do podcasts just like this, and he would call himself the matchmaker. But the piece of paper said he wasn't. It said Ray Sefo was. And, so that's the semantics that he's been using all these years. And, you can't fool people all the time. And it just got to a boiling point that, this one guy, Mike Russell, he's out of Canada. He had an issue with Ali, and, he feels that he wants to stand up for some of the fighters that have been wronged by him. And it's causing a lot of problems for Ali. And, I think Nevada has to step in. I think World Series of Fighting's senior leadership has to interject themselves and terminate him, because he's not adding anything to that promotion. The only thing he's bringing is negative publicity, and I don't agree with all publicity is good publicity. Well, guess what? Your organization is a fucking laughing stock, and nobody's fucking watching it. So you know what? It might be time for a change.
Yeah. The weekend, this one just gone, the 8-man tournament they just had, I think it was the third lowest they ever had in viewership, I believe, off the top of my head. Well, I think it was...
It was the third lowest, and I know that because I was talking with Jason Floyd, who's an excellent journalist. You can follow him on Twitter. And he told me that, he researched it, and it was the third lowest numbers, and this was supposed to be a big card. This was their one-night, 8-man tournament for a title shot, and, it absolutely bombed. Just like I thought that it would bomb. I mean, this is an organization that's in a nosedive.
Yeah, it truly is, and the fact that I don't think the card itself was strong enough on its own without, like, they were relying a lot on this 8-man tournament to help bump it up, but the card itself wasn't that strong. Like, I like the matchup of Jason High and Esteban Payan, because I thought that would just be a good scrap in general, really. But when you had Mike Ritchie fight, he went out with a beautiful finish on, and then he couldn't carry on. It just everything went wrong for them. It seemed that everything just fell apart, and the viewership just said it all. But I suppose Bellator being on the same night, I think it really showed that how strong Bellator still is, because people didn't switch over to World Series of Fighting. They stuck with the Bellator, because I think Bellator did about 700,000, and I think World Series of Fighting did about 210 or something. So yeah.
Bellator was over by the time World Series went on the air.
Oh, was it? I don't know. We're in the UK, so I don't know about the timings.
Yeah, on the East Coast, World Series started at 11 p.m. and Bellator was over at like 10:30 or 10:40 because they go on the air at 8 p.m.
Ah, okay.
East Coast time.
But it wasn't even a strong card, I felt, from Bellator. I thought it was quite a poor card, really, Bellator had on. And you look at the numbers they did, I was quite amazed at the difference between in the numbers, the viewing figures.
Yeah, I mean, it was not an incredible Bellator card. It's just, not every one of they don't have the depth. Their talent roster doesn't have the depth that it will have in 3 or 4 years. They'll be able to put on a lot more, of the tentpole shows they call them, and it'll be able to have a lot more marketable guys. But at this point, they're still in this hyper growth period where they're trying to find assets that can headline these shows.
Yeah. And
they don't have enough. They need to replicate the Kimbo and some of these younger guys like a Will Brooks. They need about 5 more Will Brooks.
Yeah, I was going to say, they've got Michael Page, Will Brooks. They've got a handful of guys that could potentially help it out, but me and Micah spoke about it, how it's still transitioning from the Bjorn stages of, Scott Cook is still flushing out some of the fighters that are on the roster, and he's still trying to find he's trying to bring in new faces, and obviously once you bring them in,
like Ken Shamrock and
but once you bring in new faces, you've got to build them up as well. You know, it takes time. You know, and also a guy can only fight so many times a year, so it does take time for it to build up. I agree with you, and I suppose they will have to have these 1 or 2 cards that aren't the strongest, but then again, if they've got them signed, they need to probably give them fights as well.
Absolutely.
I think they should sign back Ben Askren. Yeah, I think they should bring back Ben Askren.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. He's got a pretty good thing going, one championship, and they'll probably be announcing some kind of contract extension. So I really don't see Ben in Bellator, because it really doesn't make a lot of sense. There's really nobody in Bellator at 170 pounds. I mean, that guy Koreshkov. Ben killed that guy.
Yeah,
he must have punched him like 300 times. So it's like, the one championship is treating him great, and like, what's the point to go back to Bellator where their champion is a guy that he beat up really bad? So I don't see it happening, really.
No,
now,
I'm only
George
messing.
St. Pierre wanted to run his own show. If George St. Pierre wanted to run his own show in Montreal, if he was somehow able to get away from the UFC and basically pull a Mayweather or Oscar De La Hoya and be his own promoter, then I'm pretty sure Ben could get permission from one to take that fight.
Yeah. That's an interesting one as well. And like you say, I think what Ben's doing there, ONE FC, it's great because, but I think it's a shame what happened in his. I did post on our Facebook page Ben Askren's video explaining the absolute shenanigans that went on, and I'll be honest with you, I was good the fight didn't go ahead, because I'm pissed off that Ben's not fighting. I'm just like, come on, can we get him a fight? Can we just get him back in there? It's a shame. I hope he does get something sorted out really quickly, because obviously he's in condition. He went through a whole fight camp, and it's just a waste. I think it's a waste of a fighter.
Yeah, it was a waste. It was a waste of time, a waste of a lot of hard work. But he's always improving. He keeps a positive attitude. He got paid in full for that fight because he did his job, and he'll get in there again in January, February, and he'll get paid again, for big money. And so it's one of those things where he's not angry about it. It's more like his attitude is just like, how can the Santos guy be this stupid? Like, why?
Yeah.
What's wrong with him? It's more him being perplexed by the whole situation rather than him being angry.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I was just good. I was just like, I was quite looking forward to the fight, because obviously the whole incident, the last fight there, but I was just quite looking forward to it getting on again, the fight happening again. But do you know what? Like you said,
me too, man. I flew 25 hours to get there. I wanted to see it too.
Hey, if you said January, February, that's good. That means he's not having to wait, but also from being greedy as a fan, means we don't have to wait long either. Which is, I'm going to be selfish. I care more about being a fan and watching fights. So the sooner he gets back in, the better, really. Brian, we're not going to keep you on forever, because we're just being greedy and selfish. But we'd love to get you back on again and chat to you. But buddy, thank you for talking with us on this topics of MMA. And do you know what? You do your own podcast as well, so which I have listened to. I have to admit, people, if you have got iTunes or whatever. But Brian, you're going to tell people how they can tune into your podcast, aren't you? So can you let people know?
Yeah, all the links are on Twitter at Front Row Brian, and it's on iTunes, it's on SoundCloud, and then also if you go to YouTube, just put in Filthy FRB Show. You can listen listen to it on YouTube or download it on iTunes. Most people go to iTunes, SoundCloud also. And we're gonna, Tom and I, Filthy Tom Lawler, he's gonna be coming back in the new year too. So stay tuned for the announcement of his next fight. But we're gonna start trying to do it on Thursdays and be more consistent with the releases because, MMA is not my full-time job, so I have a lot of other shit going on. But we're going to try to release on Thursdays and be more consistent, and I think that'll help promote the podcast better, and, more people will be aware of it.
Yeah, well, that's the thing with us. We're consistent, aren't we, Mike? We're consistently shit.
Yeah.
So people know what they're going to get.
We can't go any poorer than what we are.
Exactly. So people know what they're getting. You see, that's a good thing. We don't let them down.